Good morning, everybody, and a very, very warm welcome to our event this morning, Tech Adaptations, Toys and Terrific Things to Do. For those of you who haven't met me before, my name is Carmel Gallagher and I'm Paediatric Client Liaison Manager here at Owen Mitchell, based in the Leeds office. And I'm really pleased that this morning I'm also joined by Rachel Perrin from Family Fund, who's going to give us a little wave. You should be able to see her in the corner of your screens. And we're also joined by Rochelle, who is one of the partners in our serious injury team. Both of them you'll get to hear from later on. Next slide, please. So over the next hour or so, I just want you all to sit back and relax and hopefully let us take some of the stress and the strain out of the festive season and over the months ahead. Let me start with a little bit of housekeeping. As you can see, I'm in my Santa's grotto this morning, and I've already got my cuppa with me as well. During the presentation, we would invite you to post any questions or any queries that you have, and you can do that via the chat function, which should appear on the right-hand side of your screen. All I would ask you to do is please include your name and your email address. And the reason that we ask that is because if, unfortunately, we run out of time this morning, or if we can't answer your question fully, it gives us the opportunity to get in contact with you after the event as well. You will also see a little pop-up at some point during the presentation, which has the link to our feedback form, and I would strongly encourage you all to complete your feedback. It's really important for us that we use that to then inform how we deliver events in the future and also about the content of those events. Is there anything else that I need to tell you? Oh yes, after the event today, you'll get an email in your inbox, a little pre-Christmas gift from us. That will include the recording of today's event, and it will also include a resource which has links to the content that we cover today and much, much more as well. So you'll have the opportunity to view the material at your leisure when you need to in the future. Okay, so let's get on. Next slide, please. So this is what we're broadly going to cover, and as you can see, we've got input from many and various people throughout the morning, and hopefully it's going to cover content which is of interest and of use for you and your family. Next slide, please. I can't really go on without saying that, of course, this year is going to be a bit different, and all of us are still getting our heads around the ever-changing rules and regulations with regard to bubbles and tiers, who we can see, where we can go, and all of that. But because we have some of that information now, it does mean that we can plan some things, and it's really important that where possible we do make those plans, because planning takes away some of the uncertainty, and it's that uncertainty that we've all lived with over the last 9 months that has been anxiety provoking for a lot of people and for a lot of children as well. We've got an opportunity this year to make some new traditions. Even the most kind of Christmas specific things that you can think of were new at one point, whether it be a Christmas tree or Christmas puddings or whatever it might be. They had to start somewhere. And so you've got an opportunity in your household to introduce your own traditions for this year, things that you might decide you want to carry on from here on in. I think it's really important that we all try and find joy in the simple things, even if that's looking at the changing seasons outside of our kitchen window. For me this morning, although I felt a little bit silly getting dressed up in my Christmas bling for this event, actually it brought me quite a bit of joy. The fact that I was putting on makeup for the first time in weeks, it was a joyful and happy experience, and we really need to try and build those in to our days as much as we possibly can. And for many of us, we will have time over the weeks ahead where we're not having to rush children out to school. We'll have time away from work. And so we can make use of that time to properly rest and recuperate. And it's really important that we make time for ourselves. Next slide, please. So unfortunately, Santa wasn't available this morning. Apparently he's quite busy at this time of year, but I was able to get the next best thing, as this little video will show you. We're just going to sort out the audio for you. So whilst my colleague behind the scenes, Gigi, is busy just trying to sort out the audio on that video. Have we got him? Let's just see.
Hi, my name is
David,
and I am a professional toy inventor. I spend all day coming up with, creating, inventing new toys and games for companies all around the world, like Hasbro, Fisher-Price, Spin Master, etc. So why do I do this? Well, play is so important in shaping kids' lives because it allows them to create a world in which they can start to experience and try out and practice concepts that they're going to encounter in the big, wide, grown-up world. For instance, how do we learn to be kind? Well, hopefully there's people around us that are kind, but perhaps we can try that out by, nurturing and doll play and putting your little trolls to bed. So when kids play games, they learn lots of concepts that are important to them when they grow up, such as forward planning, strategy, learning to share, communicating, and just working out how to have a fun time with different people. When you look at a game such as Monopoly, it's all about learning to look after your money and think about the future. Toys come in all shapes and sizes. You get big mass market toys and games, which go the whole world over and are particularly linked to big licenses now, like Disney and gaming licenses, like Minecraft. Or you get games and toys which are more niche or independent, which you might buy in smaller stores. All toys and games have the same aim, and that's to be fun and educational and stimulating. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what stimulating means. Whatever our background is, our abilities, our disabilities, our ethnicities, we all find the same things exciting and give us wonder. And that's when things give you a sensory excitement. For instance, bright lights, big bangs, things that are nice to touch. So as a toy maker, we're always trying to find new ways to bring new sensory experiences to the child. So for instance, how about, I imagine everyone recently has seen the latest craze of slime, making slime. So slime is everywhere. Kids are now making their own slime out of blue tack and things they find in the cupboards. And it's all about sensory. So when we try and create a toy, we try and make it tactile. One of the new crazes at the moment, which is really hot, is AMSR, which is, you might have noticed people watching YouTube videos of, for instance, someone just making a repetitive sound, or someone touching something, or someone cutting soap. Really, it's all about sensory satisfaction. For instance, that's why squishies have been so successful, because when you squish them, they give you a really nice feeling. So again, any way in which we can incorporate those sensory feedback into toys is really hot at the moment. The old-fashioned trick in toys of making things more wow, bang, and having more cause and effect are lights and sounds. And for that, we can do a huge amount. So this is a little thing called Loomies that came out a few years ago. But when you press its nose, it has beautiful lights and sounds. Again, all stimulating noise, sounds, texture. Again, super important. And again, what makes a toy aspirational? Well, of course, every kid in the world watches Disney and everyone wants to be a fairy princess, not me. But that's not the only things that are aspirational. Some toy companies are doing fantastic jobs. For instance, this is Barbie Fashionistas. Their lines are now much more representative of the cross-section of their consumer. For instance, Fashionistas has a great array of sizes, shapes, ethnicities and abilities that you can see on there. So not only that, toy companies are becoming much more ethical in their outlook, because they have to be, the consumer demands it. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an understanding about how we think as toy inventors and designers, and how that we try and make toys and games as pleasing and accessible and as stimulating for every child, because at the end of the day, we just want to make children happy. That's cheesy.
No, that's all right.
Thanks a lot.
So my apologies, everybody, that the sound, the volume on that video was a little bit low, lower than we'd anticipated. Hopefully you'll get to hear that again when you get the recording sent into your inbox. But a huge thank you to Gary and Stacey Piper for recording that special video for us. And the takeaway message for me from what Gary was saying there is that the purpose of all toys and the purpose of all play is that it should be fun, it should be educational, and it should be stimulating. And it was, I think, back in July when I started to think about putting together the event for today. And my inspiration for it, as I was saying to one of my colleagues earlier this morning, was actually the programme this morning. Every year they do a segment where it's the kind of best buys for the year ahead, and they'll showcase all of the glitzy and glamorous toys that are coming to the market. But one of the things that has always been missing from that is a focus on those children for whom accessibility and age appropriateness are going to be an issue when their parents are thinking about purchasing toys, not just for Christmas, but for birthdays, Eid, Diwali, whatever the celebration is. And I'm a mum of 3 myself, and my eldest child has complex needs. And one of the things that has always been a bit of a bugbear of mine is that whenever you put the word specialist or accessible in front of a search for a particular toy, the price seems to go up tenfold. So my motivation for putting together my best buys for 2020 is to think about the children who may have additional needs, and to think about what toys are on the market that are offering them something that might also reach a occupational therapy goal, or may help them to work towards their physiotherapy ambitions, or may help to promote communication within the household. So next slide, please. So here are my first 2. Little World toys. So we're talking about here anything that replicates the adult world. It could be a kitchen, like the one that we've got in the photograph there, or it might include a shop or a market stall, a Black & Decker workbench, anything really that is about giving children the opportunity to practice skills that they might need in the adult world. Now, Little World toys have seen a huge increase in popularity, particularly this year, because we've all been at home a lot more. And so children have been observing and spending lots of their time watching their parents and grandparents and carers doing things in the home. And of course, their natural instinct is to want to copy that. Now, of course, there are lots and lots of ready-made things on the market that you can buy. You just have to open any catalogue or do any Google search to find things. Some of those can be quite expensive. So I would definitely advise families to have a look at your local auction sites, have a little look at the charity shops in your area, or if you've got a bit of a DIY enthusiast in your house, you could even have a go at making something yourself, as they have done in the picture, turning what was a pretty boring and bog standard cabinet into something really quite exceptional. And remember that children don't need everything to be brand new and sparkly. Actually giving them the set of saucepans that you no longer need and some utensils from the kitchen that you're quite happy for them to play with, as long as they're clean and safe to use, it's perfectly fine. You know, they're going to be just as happy, if not happier, to have the real thing that mum and dad or grandma and granddad are using as well. I love Little World toys, and my son, who I referred to before, also loves Little World toys. His obsession during the last 9 months has been exactly that, to replicate what he sees going on at home. So his Little World toy is an office. He's created his own little office with an old laptop computer, an old phone, a stack of paper and pens and all different kinds of stationery, and he spends lots and lots of time when he's not at school having complex conversations about bookings and pretending he's a hotel manager. Little World Play is all about having that opportunity to practice those skills. It's great for building imagination and encouraging those communication skills, as well as developing gross and fine motor skills as well. So that I know for all of the therapists who may be joining us live today, it's going to be ticking lots of those boxes. So Peppa Pig. Well, I didn't think I could do a list without including Peppa Pig, because she's been a bit of a stalwart of the children's toy market for many, many years now. And Peppa's Clever Car is the latest from the Peppa franchise. It's an interactive toy, and so it does give children feedback for being able to complete particular tasks successfully. So, for example, by matching up the colours or by placing the characters in their corresponding slots in the car, the child will get a message to say kind of, well done, that's right, and that's a lovely little bit of feedback for them. It's also got an auto steer function, so it can drive independently around your house, hopefully not crashing into your shins too often. But there are a couple of downsides with it. It's not suitable for carpets. And when I spoke to my friends at William Merritt, they said that this particular toy wouldn't be great for doing an adaptation on. Nevertheless, Peppa is a bit of a hero of mine, because I think she is the embodiment of messy play with her jumping in muddy puddles, and for that she's always going to get my thumbs up. Next slide, please. So, Lego and Magformers. Well, what we're really talking about here is construction toys. And these are just two examples from a whole list of different products that are on the market. Meccano, Connect, Brio. There's really something for everything in the construction toys sort of genre. Basically, a construction toy is any toy that has pieces that you can join together to create something new. And this year, Lego have teamed up with Super Mario to create a more interactive Lego set. So when you have constructed the toy, it makes the same sounds, it does the same things that you would see on the Super Mario game. And for that, it's going to be really popular. But of course, it comes with a price tag. And one of the drawbacks of the Lego set that you see on screen here, of course, is that there are some really tiny fiddly pieces, and for lots of children that dexterity and coordination required for that might just not be quite in their skill range at the moment. So Magformers offers something different and an alternative. It uses magnets to connect the shapes and colours that you can see on screen, so that you can construct almost an infinite number of possibilities. Both of these products also carry the little STEM logo that you can see in the top right hand corner. And for those of you who might not be aware, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering and maths. So you can be assured as a parent and carer that by encouraging your child to play with these types of toys, you're also preparing them for the world of science and mathematics, and they're really good ways of building those skills. The other great thing about construction toys is that because there is such a huge number of different products on the market, there's really the opportunity for you to find the right toy for your child and their particular skill level. So you can think about exactly what it is that they need. For some children, having the confined sort of instructions of a step-by-step manual approach that something like Lego offers, that really is something that they enjoy, and certainly it's going to prepare them for the flat pack furniture making in the future. But for other children, actually what they really want is just to ignore the instruction manual altogether and to follow their own path. And what's really nice is that both of those options are absolutely the right thing to do. So, you know, always a great purchase. Next slide, please. Okay, so these two are absolutely fitting that model that Gary talked about in his video about it being focused on sensory play. And he mentioned how slime has become a mega craze with kids, but the texture might not suit everybody. And Eco Jelly have come up with a great product. And as the name suggests, it's more of a kind of tough jelly consistency, which may appeal to other children. And of course, there are other products on the market as well. So things like Play-Doh, plasticine, any kind of craft clay. You can make your own salt dough at home. Those products are feeding into that sort of sensory play model that children really do enjoy so much. The second one on the screen that you have there is from VTech, and they have a really well-deserved reputation for designing and developing toys which are stimulating and educational, and the Splash Time Submarine I think is a really good example of that, because it offers 4 different cause and effect features. And for those of you who might not be familiar with that terminology, cause and effect basically means if I press something, this is going to happen elsewhere. So you get that relationship between I do this and it results in something else. And it's a really important part of self-directed play for children. It's a really important developmental milestone. So the submarine has got 4 different features for that self-directed play, and it's also got 3 different sing-alongs for your child. I don't know whether you can turn the volume down on those, they might get a little bit annoying, and 15 other different tunes and sound effects as well. The other reason that I've included the VTech toy is because this is specifically for bath time. And as a sleep practitioner, I very often talk to families about including bath time as part of that elongated bedtime routine. It's a great way of getting some relaxing but cognitive play taking place and starts that process of winding down for a good night's sleep. So that's always going to get my thumbs up as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so I know that my colleagues at William Merritt are going to talk in quite a lot more detail about Nintendo, so I'm not going to steal their thunder, other than to say that the Nintendo Switch console is here to stay. As a platform, it has on offer a range of different games that kind of suit every age group. And I think that that's a real positive of it. And the one that you can see on your screen now has been fitted with the Nintendo adapted Switch controllers. But as I said, William Merritt will talk a little bit more about that later on. On the opposite side of your screen, you have the Smart Max sounds and senses. And I think this has to be my favourite, if I have a favourite. And it's really simple. So it's aimed at children from 12 months plus, which means that it's going to be really safe for any child to use. It basically is made up of 4 balls and 4 rods. But as you can see, those rods are all different colours and they've got lots of different textures on them as well. Each of the rods has a different sound effect built in, so it might be a rattle or a bell or a jingle. So again, it really supports that cause and effect play that I spoke about before. But the other feature of this, which I think is really lovely, is that the balls, as you can see, have lots of different faces on them, and those faces represent different human emotions. So I think as a toy that helps children to understand different emotional responses and potentially to support them to communicate their own emotional responses, this one is kind of a full marks for me. Next one, please. Okay, already we're at my final 2. So I couldn't not include Paw Patrol because they are absolutely huge in the preschool market. And I know that many parents and carers listening in will be very familiar with their TV series. This year, they've teamed up with another crowd pleaser, dinosaurs. Now, the toy itself is fairly bog standard in terms of it being kind of a plastic model, and it has a few different elements to it. But the reason that I've included it here is because from a speech and language development point of view, the names of the characters and the names of the dinosaurs lend themselves so well to letter and sound formation. I'll give you some examples. So we have characters like Rubble and Chase, Zuma and Sky, and now we've got Diplodocus and T-Rex to add into the mix. So in terms of supporting communication skills, it's a great one, and I know that it's familiar with so many children that, again, it can't fail really to be popular for this year and beyond. And my final choice this morning is a trampoline, and this is really with the message that, you know, a trampoline isn't just for the summer. They have an enduring appeal, and they're definitely a really good way of keeping children going outside, going out into the garden the whole year round. We've had a trampoline at home for, I think, 10 years now. It's the same trampoline. So although, yes, they are an initial, quite a costly outlay, with good care and maintenance, they last forever. We've replaced our net, I think, twice in those 10 years, but it's still going strong. And I think what's great about a trampoline is that obviously it offers a range of different play opportunities for children of various ages and stages. I know that my physiotherapist colleagues regularly incorporate trampolines in their therapeutic programs in terms of rebound therapy, in terms of developing core strength and some of those gross motor skills and coordination. So yeah, trampolines are definitely on my list. Earlier in the year, you couldn't find a trampoline for love nor money. They were sold out across the country, but they are now back in stock. And don't be afraid to order one just because it's a little bit colder outside. So I'm going to hand you over now to our next video. Unfortunately, William Merritt weren't able to join us live today, but they have prepared a video presentation for us, which is just going to take a couple of minutes to load onto your screen. For those of you who live in Leeds and the surrounding area, you may already be familiar with the William Merritt Centre, but hopefully this video will give you a really good introduction to just some of the things that they have on offer for you and your family. Thank you. We're just going to pause the video for a moment, ladies and gentlemen. We do seem to be having a problem with the sound on it at the moment. So if you can just bear with us just for a couple of minutes whilst we see if we can solve that technical issue. Whilst Gigi is looking at that, I can just tell you a little bit about the services that William Merritt offer. So one of the things that you're going to hear them talking about is this notion of adaptive switches, which is a way of being able to convert toys for use by children who may not be able to manage the controls of a toy that is shop bought. I'm getting feedback now. Hopefully that's not coming through. They also have a sensory toy library, which is a great resource because it allows you to try before you buy. You can loan a toy from the library for a number of weeks, see how it works for you and your child, and then if it's something that you like, that might be something that you decide to purchase. If not, it might be something that you want to swap and have a go at something else. So it's a great service that they're offering there. Okay, I think we're ready to go with the sound. Let's have a look.
The William Merritt Centre is a charity offering impartial information, advice and assessments to disabled adults and children to make day-to-day life more comfortable and enable greater independence. We provide a range of assessments from kitchen and bathroom adaptations to switches and technology. We can also help you get about, whether that's with a scooter, wheelchair, buggy or a stair lift. Or perhaps if you're planning a trip further afield, we can provide driving assessments to help you keep driving for longer. We also provide driving lessons and advise on vehicle adaptations for you as a driver or your passengers, including a car seat clinic which ensures your child's car seat is fit for purpose. At the centre, we also provide Try Before You Fly assessments. This means you can get advice, information and equipment so that you can fly more comfortably. Other services we offer include moving and handling training, room hire and tour bookings. Thanks for listening. Now our occupational therapist and occupational therapist assistant will give you further information on our technology services.
The starting point for switches assessments at the Technology Centre would be switch access assessments for toys. So this is where we look at cause and effect. So children can borrow toys where they can practice cause and effect at home. This thing can then build on to making choices using two switches, again, which can be used on different types of toys. Progression on from that would be onto accessible gaming, where you can access different games consoles using a variety of switches and joysticks. We also offer assessments for access to phones, so again via either switch access or through inbuilt accessibility features. We also look at environmental controls, which can be accessed through various devices, including your phone, iPads and standalone equipment. And we also look at computer access, so we have a variety of keyboards and joysticks, and again can look at inbuilt features on a computer.
Switches, they start out really simple. If somebody starts out at a young age, you will start with a switch that you can use with a toy, and that's cause and effect. Press the button, something's going to happen. As that child then gets older, you can start looking into what else they can do with that switch, because toys, you know, they're okay when they're younger, but you get older, you know, you or I don't want to play with a toy. We want to be able to do other things. So switches can be used for a variety of things. They can be used for environmental control, so you can control your environment. They can be used to operate a powered wheelchair. They can be used to control a phone, a tablet, a computer, pretty much anything you can use a switch with.
So we have the jelly bean switch and the smoothie switch in large and medium size. The large size is good if you need a bigger surface area. Smoothie is good if you need low sides around the edge. The spec switch has a smaller surface area and it's good when used as on a headrest on a wheelchair or as a finger switch. The microlight and power pad switches are light touch switches, so are useful for people that cannot apply much pressure on the switch. This is an example of where switches can be located on a wheelchair for use. You've got your headrest. It can be mounted in a midline position. Using at your elbow, the armrest, next to the joystick, or on the foot plates. So here at the centre we have a switch adapted toy library that anyone can access. So people can come in and borrow a switch adapted toy and a switch for a period of 3 weeks at a time. These are a range of switches that you can borrow from the toy library. When they return a toy, they can then borrow another one for another 3-week period. This allows children to play with different types of toys at home before identifying which toy the family would like to purchase for the child.
If you've got your own toys at home, or you want to buy some toys that you're then going to want adapting to be used with the Switch, all you have to do is, if you phone us up here at the centre and arrange to bring your toys in, and then we can have a quick look at them and let you know whether it's even going to be an option to Switch adapt them, and then you can just leave them with us, give us a couple of weeks, we'll get them adapted and let you know when they're ready. All we ask is for a small donation to our charity. With reference to adapting for Switches, we can adapt most battery operated toys that have an on and off switch or a button on them. For example, just a soft toy here, if it's got a button on its palm or its foot or in its tummy, those kind of toys are perfect. So this one's got one on its foot here, so you can hear that clicking. That's a button inside, so I can then adapt it so that you can plug a switch in, a bit like Paddington is here. So he's now got some sockets coming out that you can plug your switches in. What we don't want is toys like this. So this has got lots of different buttons, therefore you would need a switch for every single button on there, which just won't work and isn't practical.
This is Olive. Olive is 18 months old and has quadriplegic cerebral palsy, which means it's difficult for Olive to move and control her limbs, which means it's very difficult for Olive to play. We found out about the William Merritt Centre through our occupational therapist, who recommended that we come here to try some different switch adapted toys for Olive. We sat down with Sophie and she helped us try a lot of different switches to work out which ones particularly worked for Olive. And we found one that worked. As you can see, she's already loving looking at the toys and doesn't want me to talk. This means that we now borrow some switches from William Merritt. We also borrow switch adapted toys, which means at home Olive can play on her own, which she's very keen to do. It means that I can sit down and have a cup of tea, and it gives Olive some independence that she's never had before. Looking to the future, we've learned about lots of different items that are available for Olive, such as adapted iPads, that means she will be able to play, and adapted Wizzy, which means she'd be able to move around, which means that we're really excited about what is available to Olive in the future, rather than feeling like she's unable to join in with people. Getting help from the William Merritt Centre means that she can join in and can have fun.
Here at the William Merritt Centre, we've got a few sort of different options for gaming. It mainly depends on what kind of console somebody wants to play on. The most accessible console at the moment is the Xbox One, mainly because Xbox have developed a adaptive controller. This adaptive controller allows you to plug in switches into the back and also USB joysticks into the side. So instead of using a standard controller where you have to navigate 2 joysticks, fiddly buttons and be able to hold it, we can then split that down into a single joystick like this, or like this one, and then multiple switches that can be placed on a lap, like on a tray like this, or they can be mounted on your wheelchair or wherever needs it, and the switch then replaces the individual buttons on there, and then that allows you to be able to play the games. We set things up differently depending on what kind of game you want to be able to play. A lot of people say, that they're sick of sitting at home watching siblings play the games and they're just watching. So they're sat back, they're watching other people play, and they just want to get stuck in and do it themselves. So we've seen a variety of people that they've come in, they've not been able to play at all, and they've gone away being able to fully play a game on their own without help from anybody else. Some people do just sit back and watch, and they don't always know that they can be involved. And being involved, puts them on a level playing field with other peers of the same, people at school with their siblings, and they can, it's a common interest that people have. It's mainstream equipment that you're just making accessible. It's not really a specialist piece of equipment. here at the centre we offer accessible gaming assessments. So simply phone the centre up, explain that you want to look into gaming, that you're struggling with a standard controller, and then we can look at different options. You can come on in and we can try them all and see what works for you, and then advise you as to where to go from there.
So a huge thank you to our colleagues at William Merritt for putting together that video for us, and hopefully it's given many of you just a flavour of the wide range of adaptations and accessible options that are available on mainstream, ready to buy, off the shelf toys, games and devices. And I think it's really important that we keep bearing that in mind, that this is about creating independence for children and about being able to allow them to explore the world around them at a time when they are ready to do so. So I will be moving on to introduce my colleague Rachel Perrin from Family Fund. But before I do that, just a quick reminder, please send your questions into us via the chat function. We will have time at the end to go through all of those. But for now, hello, Rachel. Nice to see you.
Hi, Carmel. Nice to see you all, and thanks to Erwin Mitchell for inviting us today. We're delighted to be with you and feeling all Christmassy. Great to see all the products and the things that you've got to show families today. I'm Rachel and I'm the Partnership Manager for Family Fund. So I'm here to tell families about our grants, how to apply and how we can help you improve your digital skills and use the tech that we've been talking about. So next slide, please. Great. I just wanted to echo Carmel's point. I'm here to talk to you about our tech and iPads, but at Family Fund, we also can help purchase trampolines and other outdoor equipment, which we get through the lovely guys at Atlantic Trampolines. Our outdoor play equipment has been up by 82% since coronavirus, with families being locked down, and we know that trampolines have been really vital for families, helping children burn off steam. Maybe they were shielding and they couldn't go to their own parks, and also that vital rebound therapy that Carmel said. So I just wanted to tell you that's something else that we can help with. Next slide, please. So Family Fund is the UK's largest charity, providing grants for families raising disabled and seriously ill children and young people. Our main grant programme goes up to aged 18, but we do have some smaller grant programmes which can support families raising disabled children under 25. We were established in 1973, following a public campaign of those families where their children were affected by the drug thalidomide, and the government recognised that extra costs families face when caring for disabled children and set up the Family Fund. We were granted £3 million to support families, and our first grants was £26 to help families with hospital costs. But today we help with all sorts of grants, from trampolines, tech to white goods. We're one of the largest we're the largest national charity providing grants for families of disabled children, and we're based up in York, and we really pride ourselves on being effective with so much of our funding going to families. As you can see, 93p and every pound goes directly to families. And last year we supported over 92,000 families with grants and services worth around 33 million in the UK. Next slide, please. So our purpose at Family Fund is to really help improve the lives of families on low income, raising disabled and seriously ill children and young people. And we believe that all families raising disabled children should have the same choice, quality of life, opportunities and aspirations as other families. And that's why this isn't an emergency grant. It's to help remove those barriers and give families and children the same choices, quality of life, opportunities and aspirations as other families. Next slide, please. So we support families by providing essential information for families, and last year our helpline answered over 128,000 calls from families phoning up to find out about their grants, but we were also able to help with information about their benefits, complete benefits checks, and also signpost to other grants and services that might benefit families. We helped 2,500 families receiving urgent help in hospitals and hospices with our urgent referrer network, and we've provided over 14,000 services to families, including information and support on the telephone, face-to-face, in the family's home, and digital skills training and advice. As you can see that, oh, sorry, I'll go on to the next slide. So it's just going to say, as you can see, we can also help with furniture, clothing, tablets and computers. And in 2019, we granted over 12,000 computers and tablets to families in the UK. Next slide, please. We're going to move on to a video showing you how and who we can help at Family Fund and some of the families that we've already supported. Hopefully this will give you some ideas of what you may be able to apply to Family Fund for and how we can help. So here's our video about the difference that we can make at Family Fund.
Jordan would never play, and during the day he would just spend hours upon hours headbanging on the walls, the radiators. Now he still does it daily, but nowhere near the amount of time because he's more occupied in toys.
It's really helping her, and her speech is actually improving. Now she can make a lot of bubbling noise, which is really fantastic. It has really a great impact.
The outdoor play equipment, which was brilliant because Elaine at that point didn't have very good immunity because she had the congenital heart condition, which kept her quite isolated. Now we were able to just take her outside and she can play freely.
Things would be a lot harder before we had the iPad. You know, you get a hospital admission and it's very boring for him and it can be very upsetting for him, and to have something like that which helps calm him it's priceless really.
And it was something that we've always wanted for Maisie because she's got arthritis and hypermobility. Obviously something that we could all do together, and obviously there's times where Maisie is really pain because we can't go out. Hydrotherapy is really good for her joints.
Having these passes this year to just give you that little bit of normality, and that's what it's about for us, to being able to have that normality, and Family Fund has helped that.
We was at our wit's end with trying to get him into school, and I just couldn't afford to get him one. So that's why I applied to Family Fund in the hope that they would help us out, and they have, and he's been in school ever since.
It awarded us around £200 hospital living. It helped a great deal, really great deal, because it's really expensive. Getting back and forth, my father was staying in there, we had sort of like food, stuff, just everyday living in there.
Emily got funding for a special needs specific bike, and I think at the end of the day, by getting the grant and being able to buy the equipment that we had, it's definitely helped Emily with her health and fitness.
Just going to stick with the shed eventually.
We had to slab at the back and that to make it safe for to run about.
He was just chilling out in there after running about all day. He eventually fall asleep on it.
Especially having Casper as well, because I am on the road every day. I can just play with him and I know Grace safe and we're all out there together. I know that Grace not going to put anything in his mouth, which has made it a lot easier. 100%.
The equipment we've got now in Kai's sensory room, it really does make a difference. If he's falling asleep in his igloo so many times now because it's that relaxing, I think I'd be lost now without Family Fund.
Provided the iPads and support afterwards, their communication, their voice is on that piece of technology. In a way, Family Fund's provided their voice, haven't they?
These vouchers that we get when we go to Haven, that just wouldn't be able to happen because we can't afford it, because I'm no longer working. So the sacrifices that have to be made, and the likes of Family Fund, is just a lifeline for families with children with disabilities.
Right, well, there's an example of some of the items that we have helped families with, and I hope that gives you a real picture of the difference they can make to families. Now Gigi is going to put on a film and a short animation which explains the eligibility criteria for Family Fund. We are means tested, so we're there for families on low incomes who are in receipt of benefits, but we also have a children's eligibility criteria, and this short animation talks you through who would be eligible and can really help you make a better application to Family Fund.
At Family Fund, we help families across the UK raising a disabled or seriously ill child or young person aged 17 or under. You can apply to Family Fund if you currently live in the UK and have done so for 6 months or longer, or 3 months if your child is less than 6 months old. If you are the parent or carer of a disabled or seriously ill child or young person who lives with you. Your child has additional support needs arising from a long-term disability or disabling condition, or a serious or life-limiting illness. By long-term, we mean lasting or likely to last 12 months or more. Whether members of the family are in or out of work, we can help families currently receiving any one of the following: Universal Credit, Child Tax Credit, Working Tax Credit, Income-Based Job Seekers Allowance, Income-Related Employment Support Allowance, Income Support, Housing Benefit, Pension Credit. When we talk about disability, we use our own social model. This means that rather than just thinking about a condition in medical terms or an official diagnosis, we look at the barriers your child faces in their life and the support and adaptations they need to take part and join in. If your child receives DLA or PIP, this does not automatically mean they are eligible. To help us decide eligibility, we have identified 7 areas of support. These are areas of everyday life where your child may need extra support. To be eligible, your child must meet any 3 or more. Personal care, supervision and vigilance. The things like feeding, washing, toileting require a very high level of supervision, over and above that needed for another child of the same age. Does your child need additional supervision when at home and out and about to safely play with children their age? Access to social activities. We mean things like engaging socially and taking part in activities. Who do they play with? Does anything prevent them from taking part in social activities? Education. What support is in place so that your child can learn? How much support is required? Do they go to a mainstream school? Do they have an education plan? Communication. We mean listening, speaking, and understanding. Does your child have difficulty with any aspect of understanding? Therapy and medical treatment. What treatment or therapy is given? Who does this? How often and when? Does your child receive regular support from community or specialist nurses? Specialist resources. Does your child require medical equipment? The physical environment. We mean support with getting around and keeping safe. Have adaptations been made to your home or in school to support your child getting around? Can your child travel independently? How do they get to and from school? Remember, the more you can tell us about your child's needs, the easier it is for us to process your application. If you think you could be eligible to apply, head to our website www.familyfund.org.uk to download an application pack. Any questions about our eligibility criteria, give us a call on 01904 550055 or email us at info@familyfund.org.uk.
Great. Thanks, Gigi. So as we're here to talk about tech and toys, and you will have seen in our the difference video that we showed first, we do have supply a huge amount of tech and iPads. So next slide, please, Gigi. I'm going to talk to you a bit about the support we can provide for families to use iPads and other tablets. And in 2015, we began to develop our digital skills program programme, because families who had received a grant for an iPad or a tablet were telling us that they needed help with the skills to support their child to use the device, and they wanted to use that confidently, be able to make the most of the tablet, and how to use the accessibility features. So now we provide iPad training to families and can offer information to families about how to use the tablets and other devices. We also have some information on apps, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about why we did that. Next slide, please. So our families told us that they really needed to be able to set their devices up for their children's specific needs. So around that, maybe visual impairment, accessibility. They also told us about the fact that they needed to make sure that their use of the iPad was safe, and when they were online, they could ensure their children were safe. Families told us they wanted to help improve their child's communication, so non-verbal children being able to use some of the apps and learning tools that they're using in school, and to be able to use them at home confidently, and some of that other software tools and features. Next slide, please. So families also told us they needed help with using the iPad to manage their child's behaviour, maybe setting alarms, quiet times, the ability to mirror school support, as I've mentioned, creating social stories on the iPad for home, or using the same learning apps as at school. Families needed to have a better understanding of how to use devices. As I say, maybe being able to use PEC symbols or different software, some of the switch technology, increased confidence to go online for families, reduce anxiety and stress, to give children time out to play and relax, and to give parents some time for themselves to do some of the other jobs that they needed. Next slide, please. Okay, so at Family Fund, we have an offer to provide online sessions for families one-to-one with one of our trainers from Apple via Zoom with your iPad. And the sessions last between 1 and 2 hours, and trainers will really gear those sessions to what families want to learn. So this might include how to stay in touch with families and friends online using Zoom, FaceTime and other apps, staying safe online. So talking through how to set some of those parental settings, lock screens, highlighting issues with certain apps, and safety for things like purchasing items. I know when I went on the iPad training, I learned how to set features so my child couldn't buy Hello Kitty tokens on some of those buy games, which unfortunately happened to my friend's dad. We can show the iPad accessibility settings. So if your child has a visual impairment, tracking issues, might need help with magnifiers or audio description, touch, switch and voice control, the Apple trainers can talk you through whatever it is that might help your child access that iPad better. We can also show fun educational activities. So Apple has GarageBand and Apple Bookstore, and this year we ran a summer school with Apple, bringing children from across the UK together and sharing creative apps such as GarageBand, and it went down really well with the children who've been off school for such a long time due to coronavirus, and they could work with others and create music and art. And finally, it's really important that families can access information and services online. That might be benefits, it might be information about their child's disability or other support groups, and we can help families think about how to access those through their iPad and technology. Next slide, please. So that's enough of me telling you. I just thought it would be really important to share a family story with you finally, and tell you a little bit about what families think. Next slide, please. So Bella's 14 years old and she lives with her mum Anne in East Sussex, and Bella has autism, hypermobility, and she has the movement of her joints are affected and her hands can dislocate easily. And Bella's also been diagnosed with a visual impairment. So she had some tech in school, and Anne didn't know how to use that at home. The school didn't help her set that up at home. So our Apple trainer was able to help Anne, show her how to use the voice recognition on the iPad. And she says he was incredibly prepared and went through everything with her. He showed Bella how to change the font and background, as she finds it easier to read white text on a black background. And has signed up to the training during the first stages of the coronavirus lockdown and wasn't sure if it would go ahead. And we used to do our training face to face, but now we've managed to put all of our services online so families can access them even easier and do the training remotely. Next slide, please. Oops, sorry, I just moved on my slide. So as you can see, there we go. The next slide. So we were able to help them understand how to use the magnifier, which was a massive thing. Bella was able to access her reading independently, and Anne said it had enriched Bella's life. She now has lots of new aids and has learnt so many things, and was really appreciative of the support she got through Family Fund and our digital skills programme. So last slide, please. So if you want to find out more about Family Fund, you can go to our website. You can see our families sharing stories through their blogs, or you can go to our Facebook page, where families often put information about the grants they've had and the difference it makes to them. If you'd like any more information, you can email us at info@familyfund.org.uk, or you can call our hotline there and speak to one of our first contact team, who can answer your questions and also can talk to you about the other services such as benefits, information and advice. Right, thanks very much, Carmel. I'm going to hand back to you, and any questions I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And I know from the little bits of feedback that have been coming through whilst you've been talking, you've really opened people's eyes to the breadth of the work that the Family Fund support, and really the message that I was getting from that there's almost no limitation, is there, to what you will try and support a family to be able to achieve. And I think, as we move forward with this, the lovely videos that you had and the feedback from Bella and her family, we know this already, but it's worth saying time and time again that children who can play are happy, and happy children make for happy families, and that's what we're trying to support this morning, is reaching that kind of ultimate goal of having a family set up where everybody feels that they've got a role to play, where they can be as independent as possible, where their lives can be enriched by the access to tech and to the things that they've got available to them. And can't thank you enough for joining us and going through that this morning. So yes, our question and answer line is still open, so please do get your questions through. We will be coming to those in just a few minutes. But we wanted to end this morning's session by just thinking about, well, okay, yeah, we know that the big Christmas event is only a few weeks away, but actually winter is going to go on for a few more weeks still following that. And we want to be able to give you as much support and information about the things that you and your family can still do throughout the winter months. Next slide, please. There we go. So my first message is that, we have to embrace the outdoors whenever and wherever we can. And as Gromit is showing us there in the little image, there's no such thing as the wrong weather. It's just the wrong trousers. We have to get into this this model of kind of changing our mindset. Being outdoors is not just a summer activity, and in the UK, we've got 6 months of the year where the weather is not necessarily exactly the best that we might want it to be, but we have to be prepared to wrap up warm, get on our welly boots, put on those waterproofs, and just get out there. We know that being outdoors and being in nature has such a tremendously beneficial effect on not just our, but our whole family's mental health and well-being. And it's really important that we keep practicing the good habits that we all got into during the first period of lockdown. You know, everybody was going out doing their daily walks, their daily exercise. Let's keep that going throughout the winter as well. A few little points though to bear in mind, obviously from a safety perspective, when we're out and about in the winter, we do have low lights and the nights are darker. So we need to give special thought to making sure that we can be seen. You know, have we got bright clothing on? Do we have some high vis reflective gear that's going to make it easier for other people and for vehicles particularly to see us when we're out and about? In the UK as well, we've also got a unique situation where we have hundreds and hundreds of miles of accessible paths and walkways. And, you know, we really want to be making the most of those. I've just mentioned on the screen there a couple of websites that you can go to, which will give you information about the accessible walks. That means that they are wheelchair, buggy, walking frame friendly walks that you can get to in your area. And they do cover the length and breadth of the country. Next slide, please. But of course, you know, those of us with children recognise that it can be quite a tricky thing to keep people motivated on a walk. So I tried to come up with a list of, well, as you can see, 20 plus things that you can do to perhaps encourage and prompt and motivate to keep those little legs moving, to keep those wheels turning when you're out and about. Most of those, I think, will be self-explanatory. Or very familiar, so like the old-fashioned poo sticks under a bridge, again, that many of us will have played before, but hopefully there's some good new ideas for you there as well. I really like the idea of a penny hike, but I wouldn't do that in an area that I wasn't familiar with, or you could end up hopelessly lost. But principally, the idea is that every time you get to a junction, you toss a coin and that decides whether you turn left or right. So it's a really nice way of engaging people and kind of having a new route around your local park or your local area. And the other thing on there to remember is, you know, whatever the weather, always take a picnic, even if it's just a snack. There's no better motivator in my experience than being able to say, oh, when we just get to the top of the next big hill, we'll be able to open our flask of hot chocolate, or we'll be able to share a snack together. Just kind of keeps people moving along. Next slide, please. Of course, there are going to be days when we just can't go outdoors. And, you know, indoors can be fun too. I wanted to think about some of the things that we can do that hopefully mean that we can take a break from the screen, although, you know, screens definitely have their place as well. So, you know, why don't we look at board games? Now, I'm not talking about the tried and tested ones that maybe we're already bored of. So the Monopolies, the Scrabbles, that kind of thing. There are so many different board games out there and so many different themes. They are linked to some of the toy franchises that we spoke about earlier on. Again, really good thing to do. Have a rummage in your local charity shops. Find a random board game, give it a go, see what it brings. You might find a little gem in and amongst there. The Disney Dance Along, you can access those via the This Girl Can website, and they are just a lovely way of bringing joy and happiness into the household when everybody can imagine themselves as King Louis from the Jungle Book or Moana dancing in the waves. And I just think it's a really nice way to kind of turn up the volume and get people moving and having fun at home. Of course, the resources that were available throughout the summer are all still there. So all of those favourite Joe Wicks workouts are all still available on YouTube. Find your favourite, you know, if it's the Friday ones where you get dressed up, whichever it is, you can still access those. And of course, because we're at home and we're all at home, it gives us a great opportunity to take that time to perhaps cook and eat together more than we might do during a busy working school week. You might want to try things like a different recipe, or maybe get your kids involved in picking recipes that you can try at home as well. Next slide, please. For those of us who do like our phones and tablets, though, there are some really lovely new apps that have been introduced for this festive period, and very kindly, neuropsychologist Cosine Ford has kind of trawled through and has given us her kind of top 4. So we've got Word Crush, which is kind of a brain training puzzle solving game that some people might want to try. We've also got a lovely app called The Gift of Magi, which is a way of exploring popular and new short stories from around the world, and a nice way to kind of engage in kind of that Christmas Eve storytelling tradition. Next slide, please. I think Festive People AR is going to be very, very popular with some children, because it gives them the chance to augment their reality. In other words, they can digitally decorate your home, even putting Santa in the chimney, and really go to town with that. And I think lots of children will get a real kick out of interacting with that game. And one that is slightly different again is Ollie and the Animals in Winter, which goes back to that cause and effect model of play which we talked about earlier, and really helps to stimulate the senses with its sight, sound and touch programs. All of the ones that we've highlighted here are free, and we've tried to identify which devices they're for as well, but have a look for yourself. I'm sure there are others out there as well. Next slide, please. We're rapidly getting close to the end of today's presentation. I wanted just to remind people, if they haven't already seen it, that we now have a Parent Carer Forum Facebook group, which is managed and run by the team at IM. It's a great way for families to share experiences and to seek advice. And it's already proving itself to be a really good way of finding out information about services local to you and nationally. I think some of the benefits that it has over other support sites and forums that are out there is that we're also lucky enough for it to be supported by a plethora of experts, including occupational therapists, physios, speech and language therapists, and so on. And so you're able to interact and get access to information from those practitioners, as well as, of course, the full range of legal support services that Owen Mitchell offer. I think you've heard enough from me, almost, for now. I just wanted to introduce you to just one item from my Santa's Grotto behind me, and this is this guy here, and he is my worry monster. And some of you may be familiar with the concept of worry monsters already, but if you're not, worry monsters can be used as a really good resource for children who may be experiencing heightened anxieties and concerns at this time. Simply, I can unzip the worry monster's mouth, and I can feed him my worries, and he literally can make them disappear inside his tummy. Depending on your child and how accessible things are to them and their particular needs, you can either then just assume that those worries have gone away, or the monster can keep those worries safe until you and your child can discuss them in a more kind of controlled environment. Really good to have available as part of that bedtime routine, so that you're not having a child up half the night engaging you with conversation about their worries, which may be better used elsewhere in the daytime. So I'm going to hand you over to Rochelle, who I think is going to lead us on our Q&A session. Rochelle, are you there?
I'm certainly here. I was just waiting for the picture to move over. So I just wanted to say thank you very much to Rachel and Carmel. I think you probably need to mute, actually, Carmel, because it's giving feedback. Okay, great. We're just going to move on to the Q&A session. I personally think it's incredible work that Family Fund and William Merritt are doing, and actually the range and diversity of the educational materials that are helping children with who've got access needs with communication and actually just accessing normal toys is just incredible. So the first question I've got, which I think is for Carmel, is can I use my Buddy Switch on my iPad and iPhone? I think you're on mute, Carmel.
I was so eager to answer you, I just carried on regardless. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, that's great.
You can definitely use the Buddy button switch on iPads and iPhones, but I believe that they need a switch interface so that it's got a different wiring option on it. So some of them use Bluetooth, some of them use other bits of tech like Tapio or Hook Plus. It's worth just having a look at that, which is going to work best with your version of the iPad or iPhone.
That's great. And the next question is, what is the maximum amount of switches you can plug into a toy?
I think as one of our colleagues, William Merritt, said, I think it's about what is it that you want the toy to do. The more switches, the more kind of complex the toy, the more switches you would need to kind of put on from that, and then it becomes a question of how many switches is your child able to use and how many can be plugged in, rather than having a switch with wires and tech coming out all over it, which then becomes a bit unwieldy. So I think as a general rule of thumb, I wouldn't have more than about 4 switch sockets unless there's a really good reason to do so.
Okay, so we saw lots of different shaped switches in the presentation, which was from William Merritt, which is really interesting that there's so much available on the market. But another question that's come in is, can you get switches with variable pressure?
There's not particularly ones with, or I'm not aware of anyone that has variable pressure. But I think you saw in the video that there are a number of switches which have various levels of pressure required to activate them. So I've not seen a variation in the same switch, but you could have different switches attached to the same toy or the same device, which required different levels of pressure, i.e. if you wanted to have something that had a light touch that activate one particular aspect, and then you could have a different switch that was operated perhaps by a foot that did something else in that cause and effect model that we looked at before.
Just the last question that's come in is, can I adapt my own toys at home? I think if you've got the technology skills that I've got, probably not, but I don't know whether there's an easy way of doing it.
Yeah, I think increasingly we're seeing DIY guides coming up and available online. I know that when I spoke to William Merritt before this, I thought this might be one of the questions that came up. There is a site, OneSwitch, which is just oneswitch.org, and they have a number of DIY guides on there. Equally, I think you'll find DIY guides now available through kind of the normal YouTube type links. And I know that in presentations that some of our colleagues have attended earlier in the year, they actually had a workshop, an online workshop, where you could bring your bit of kit and your soldering iron, and you could kind of do it live as a group interactive session. But yeah, maybe not as your first dalliance into switch adaptations. I would certainly talk to the experts first of all before you end up breaking potentially an expensive toy.
That's great, Carmel. Thank you very much. So if you're based in the Leeds area, then get in touch with William Merritt. They've got the Switches for Kids project, which is fantastic, and you can go and borrow toys from their library for your children. And if you want to make an application to the Family Fund, Rachel has given us lots of useful information about how to do that, and their great work as well. I'd just like to thank Rachel Perrin and Carmel Gallagher. They've put a huge amount of effort into this presentation today. And I think obviously William Merritt have done their videos, and it just shows, it's testament to the work that they're doing in this area. I'd also like to thank Gigi, who's been providing all the IT support in the background, and our group sales and marketing people, Alex and Lily. There's a huge amount of preparation that goes into these events, and you know, it's just fantastic that it's been such a good presentation today. We will be circulating the presentation, the recording, so if you want to watch it again, that's fine. And also please join our Facebook group, because there's huge amounts of information on there. And I think that's the end of today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.